At Shangjung City First Middle School, students file toward an ancient testing stone that will decide their futures, each placing a hand against its glowing surface so the relic can measure both profession and raw talent. And when one dark-haired teenager takes his turn, the crystal answers with the magical equivalent of a participation trophy. Anbai has awakened as a mage, but his aptitude is only 3.1. His watching classmates immediately cook their class president for barely clearing the class transfer minimum, especially when his own girlfriend supposedly scored above 9. Yet that girlfriend, Lu Ruyan, steps forward with her 9.6 mage talent and promises to protect him from now on, while Anbai calmly brushes off her concern as if the humiliating number means absolutely nothing. That confidence comes from a secret nobody here could guess. He is simply relieved he did not awaken as an ordinary person, because 18 years earlier he transmigrated into this world after other planes invaded, monsters ran wild, 90% of humanity died, and the survivors were compressed into fortified city-states. To give humanity a fighting chance, the plane itself began blessing people with combat professions, dividing them among 6 major paths: warrior, mage, priest, archer, beast tamer, and support, while a 10-point aptitude scale determines their ceiling. 3 merely unlocks a first transfer, 6 allows further advancement, and anything above 9 marks a potential mythic tier genius. By that brutal standard, Anbai's 3-1 only qualifies him for the most basic mage route, leaving the former apocalyptic grand mage painfully aware that his new body might not even qualify as respectable cannon fodder. Lu Rian advises him to abandon the mage path, awaken as support instead, and spend his future handling her logistics. But Anbai has already chosen his build and tells her flatly that he will transfer into a mage, triggering another round of laughter from classmates who think the broke low scorer has finally lost the plot. He ignores them, grips a battered wooden staff, and briefly wonders whether buying a better one might improve his second attempt, while Lu Ruyan warns that if he refuses her generous offer to remain at her side, he cannot blame her for turning heartless. Inside the class transfer hall, an older examiner gives Anbai one final chance to reconsider, asking whether he truly intends to become a mage as several other students gather behind him to hear the answer. The examiner points out that Anbai is an orphan with no adults funding him, and that a 3.1 mage burns resources no faction would willingly provide. But Anbai already knows this talent is dumpster tier and still refuses to back down, because one last hope remains: the mysterious system locked inside him since his arrival. Its activation conditions completing a class transfer, so Anbai tells teacher Wang his decision is final and chooses mage, prompting the resigned instructor to direct him into the transfer array and accept its baptism of energy, even as Wang mutters that another young man has been led astray by an impossible dream. Blue runes and shattered stones whirl around Anbai as concentrated power pours into his body, producing enough pressure to wipe the dismissive look straight off teacher Wang's face. Before the ritual confirms a successful transfer into Magic Apprentice and grants Anbai the starter skill Basic Fireball, Wang still sighs that this outcome makes him only an apprentice, not a proper mage. Yet Anbai can barely contain his excitement as something far more valuable finally responds, wrapping him in golden light while a hidden interface tears through the seal that has followed him across 2 lives. The newly activated skill affix system binds to its host and explains the cheat code. Every level grants 1 golden affix draw that can attach extra effects to any skill, and Anbai already has a pull waiting. He draws immediately and lands the golden legendary affix explosion, a pull so rare that even his past life experience gives him absolutely no reason to complain. A result that breaks this world's normal rules because affixes ordinarily enhance equipment, while his system can bolt them directly onto abilities, with item quality rising from white, common, through green, blue, purple, and orange to gold legendary. Anbai realizes his very first reward sits at the absolute ceiling, generating an area explosion whose damage ranges from 10 to 100 times normal and weakens outward from the core. Since Basic Fireball is currently his only damaging spell, he fuses Explosion into it without hesitation, turning the starter pebble of the mage skill tree into a potential 100-fold bomb that he desperately wants to test. With the transfer complete, Anbai heads straight for the secluded mountain behind the school to find out how unreasonable his new build really is. Asking around leads him to the back mountain's novice trial grounds, where he buys a set of beginner gear and joins the line before a glowing portal, drawing whispers from classmates stunned that the 3.1 washout actually chose mage and predicting he will survive by clinging to Lu Ruyan, while Anbai learns the teachers stock this training zone with wild monsters that generally remain below level 5. That controlled danger makes it the perfect laboratory for his upgraded fireball, so he moves toward the entrance with zero interest in the crowd, accidentally colliding with Lu Ruyan and sending himself sprawling at the feet of the now fully equipped mage. She offers to team up, announcing that as a third-tier ice mage she can carry him and generously split half the experience. But when Anbai rejects the offer and explains he only approached because she blocked the gate, Lu Ruyan seethes over the public embarrassment and wonders how she can preserve her polished image of affection and unity now. Teacher Wang warns Anbai that low-level monsters are still dangerous and orders him not to ruin the school's long record of 0 deaths, privately wondering how this stubborn orphan found the trial grounds even though Wang deliberately withheld their location. Anbai enters alone through the magic array and materializes inside a deep forest, where his first target is a level 1 mutated rabbit with 80 health, 5 attack, and 3 defense, a native creature of the blue planet whose instincts and habits changed after contamination by otherworldly energy. Choosing caution over pride, Anbai hides behind a tree, invokes basic fireball, and launches the glowing shot as a sneak attack, only to watch the painfully slow projectile miss when the alert rabbit springs aside. The spell looks cooked for half a second, but instead of dying in the dirt, it keeps tracking as the rabbit exposes a mouthful of nightmare fuel, swings back from the creature's blind side, and closes on its startled face before it can dodge again. Explosion finally triggers on impact, flooding the clearing with enough fire and pressure to erase the target in one blast. While Anbai estimates a 10-meter radius and realizes the slow speed hardly matters when enemies cannot predict the delayed area detonation, the kill raises his experience to 1%. Now familiar with the spell's behavior, he pulls up his hood and starts speed farming levels like the world's most overqualified beginner. Racing through the forest, Anbai lets a growing herd of mutated boars thunder after him, using his freshly boosted body to maintain the dangerous pace without slowing, guiding the beasts past sharpened obstacles and keeping just far enough ahead to avoid their tusks, because their low intelligence makes them ridiculously easy to lure into one tightly packed kill zone. He scatters fireballs along the route with practiced wand movements, their slow orange trails looping across the trees, until every charging monster piles into the same path and the waiting spells ignite among them. Chained explosions rip through the entire herd, throwing boars and debris across the burning clearing as overlapping area damage turns the pack into a full-screen wipe. And the system confirms 16 mutated creatures dead while Anbai's experience jumps to 29%. More blasts roll across the trial grounds as he repeats the strategy from one monster cluster to the next, finally reaching level 2, gaining 1 point in every stat from the basic class passive, and 3 spirit from Mage Novice, plus another golden affix draw. Anbai eagerly spends the pull, only for the system to hand him the exact same legendary explosion card, a duplicate that initially feels like the worst possible gacha prank, until a hidden protection rule detects the repeat and grants him an additional draw opportunity for free. The replacement produces another golden legendary affix called Tenfold, while the system confirms identical effects can stack, allowing Anbai to fuse his second explosion into Fireball as something large watches from the darkness. His upgraded level 2 spell now carries 2 explosion stacks, retains a 1% burn chance, and can multiply damage from 30 to 300 times normal. After the next round of hunting, Anbai roasts a slab of mutated beast meat over a fire, knowing that eating these creatures supplies a slow trickle of experience and even small permanent stat increases. He practically clears the back mountain bear, though the limited beginner prey only pushes him to level 4, and a surprise attack from a mutated bear makes him hurriedly assign tenfold to the basic class passive instead of the offensive slot he intended. That accident multiplies his core stat growth by 10, leaving him at 25 physique, 24 dexterity, and 37 spirit, and opening a completely new lane for future affix abuse. The separate no cooldown and instacast affixes Anbai rolled, while gaining later levels also patch Fireball's sluggish activation perfectly, but with the back mount nearly empty. Reaching level 5 will require fresh hunting grounds. Outside, Dean Jifeng notices the monsters are disappearing far faster than usual as both men monitor the exit, while Teacher Wang assumes several top students must be cooperating. Though Jifeng doubts the explanation because he knows their limits, until a desperate cry for help interrupts them. An injured student bursts from the portal trailing blue energy and nearly collapses before the two teachers, explaining between breaths that he was grinding peacefully along the outer edge when something changed, and a massive mixed horde suddenly stampeded toward the boundary from deeper inside, forcing him to sprint or be trampled. Jifeng immediately orders Wang to widen the portal and prepare an emergency extraction for every student still inside, while Anbai, standing deeper in the trial grounds, wonders why every other hunter has vanished. The expanded gate draws panicked students away from the charging creatures as they race toward the teachers waiting outside, leaving wolves, boars, and stranger mutated beasts to surge together in one enormous wave. From a rocky perch, Anbai finally spots the incoming mass and realizes exactly what emptied the mountain. But instead of fleeing, he recognizes exactly the kind of concentrated experience payout needed to push him straight to level 5. Everyone else keeps pouring through the emergency portal while staff count survivors and hold the route open, and after remaining behind long enough to take advantage of the horde, Anbai eventually walks out through the glowing array unharmed. A relieved Teacher Wang asks how he escaped, only for Anbai to claim the beasts were already gone by the time he emerged. So Wang assumes they disperse naturally and reminds him that the grand exam arrives in 10 days and will determine his future career path. The staff do not even bother using an appraisal skill on the supposed 3.1 weakling, which suits Enbai perfectly as the system privately confirms level 5, unlocks his second-class skill slot, grants 10 all-stat points through tenfold, and adds 3 more spirit without provoking any outward reaction. He immediately spends the new golden draw and obtains the legendary Affix Corpse explosion. Back at the devastated training ground, another party enters after Enbai has already left, and Lu Ruyan bites down her frustration as the eerie silence confirms something is wrong. Surrounded by fresh craters instead of prey, she demands to know where every mutated beast disappeared to, unaware her supposedly useless boyfriend erased the entire population first. That night, Anbai visits Shangjiang's brightly lit Adventurers Association, a glass tower packed with services for professional hunters. Planning to open his news dungeon card and browse skill books among the crowded evening patrons. Now that level 5 has unlocked a second ability slot, only to discover even the most basic advertised tier 1 ice spell costs 10 grand. Proof that a mage build is financially hostile to normal people. Skipping the overpriced shelf, he approaches reception and asks to activate a dungeon card, where the clerk correctly guesses he is one of the freshmen who awakened that day, then hands him a form requesting his high school and class. When Enbai writes first high in Mage, a nearby table of rough adventurers abruptly erupts over piles of coins, half celebrating a winning bet, and the rest cursing their luck so loudly that he asks what is happening. Their bandana-wearing leader congratulates the kid for reaching level 5 this quickly and welcomes another first high mage, explaining that he graduated from the same school before offering 3 basic recovery potions on the house. And Bai studies the prize and realizes these strangers were apparently gambling on him. And the leader cheerfully admits they bet on which high school would produce the first dungeon card opener and what class that student would be. His money landed on first high mage, explaining the table's instant jackpot celebration. And Bai thanks the old man for the potions, earning an immediate protest from someone who only graduated last year, before the adventurer introduces himself as Zhao Virajan and offers future help with power leveling. More interested in exploiting the room's gambling addiction, Anbai asks Brother Zhao whether any other pools are running, and learns they normally wager on a freshman's first dungeon route and clear time, though the veterans avoid betting whenever Zhao knows the entrant personally. Anbai raises 1 recovery potion like a bargaining chip and, without even blinking, proposes 10 to 1 odds that he will clear a purgatory-level dungeon. Zhao nearly coughs out a lung and warns that purgatory dungeons are not playgrounds a brand new rookie survives for fun, because even coordinated veteran parties treat that difficulty as a death sentence. But Anbai's steady stare says the challenge is exactly why he chose it, and Zhao quickly realizes the kid is not bluffing. He signs the wager, asks Anbai's name, and notes that once the pool opens, total stakes could reach 3 to 500,000, real money by any rookie standard. While Anbai registers at reception and correctly guesses the veterans mainly fear he cannot cover a loss. He introduces himself as Anbai of Upper River Cities and family, tells Zhao to organize the pool, and promises him a cut, leaving the alumnus to assume this unknown clan must be a hidden noble family backing one terrifyingly confident freshman. Anbai then selects Remnants of the Bug Emperor, a level 5 purgatory dungeon whose interface confirms a solo participant count, and Zhao reacts to the hardest possible choice by deciding his new little brother is a VIP golden ticket worth following for life. A red transfer array and by side abandoned, overgrown city ruins, where the challenge scales from surviving 8 hours to killing 300 gold-winged and 300 green-winged bugs, defeating both matching generals, and finally to destroying the nest while staying alive. With no map, Anbai chooses the wonderfully subtle navigation method of walking wherever the insect swarm grows thickest, soon drawing 3 level 7 gold-winged bugs with 680 health, 60 attack, and 90 defense. He fires his enhanced spell into the incoming formation before their armored bodies can surround him, and the first detonation swallows the attackers in a rolling sphere of flame with nowhere safe inside its central radius. Their defensive shells let bugs at the outer edge survive, so Anbai prepares an immediate follow-up shot, only for the scorched bodies already on the ground to convulse and swell with green energy, then explode violently enough to catch the remaining insects and set off a brutal chain reaction. And Bai finally recognizes the unexpected second blast as Corpse Explosion, an affix he had hurriedly attached to Fireball without reading. Slain enemies detonate for damage based on their maximum health plus incoming attack power, turning every kill into ammunition for the next and making tightly packed formations catastrophically self-destructive. Green shockwaves keep racing through the ruined streets, obscuring buildings beneath clouds of pulverized insects as one dead body detonates the next. And Mbai realizes Corpse Explosion means he no longer needs to waste energy spamming Fireball. A single properly placed corpse can start a massive self-sustaining chain reaction, with the pressure throwing him through blast after blast while his boosted body survives the swarm, effectively deleting itself around him. Orange fire and toxic green detonations overlap across entire blocks in layer after layer of expanding area damage, spreading through every clustered wave faster than the surviving bugs can separate, recover, or escape. until Anbai emerges from the smoke, cloak billowing behind him, without slowing his methodical march toward the nest. The combo is almost custom-built for exterminating swarms because even if one wave is blown apart, any scat survivors regroup, charge back in, and conveniently bunch themselves beside the next corpse. A distant concentration of movement finally catches his attention through the settling dust, revealing an enormous hollow nest below, where insects cover the walls and are packed so tightly that Anbai considers their formation a favor rather than a threat. Armored gold-winged bugs launch upward from the colony in multiple rows and rush his exposed position, while a single glowing fireball drops straight down through the dark hollow like a lit match entering a powder barrel, triggering another violent green chain that tears through the clustered nest and shakes apart the surrounding ruins beneath him. Back at the association, Zhao Rushin sweats while staring at the dungeon display for any sign of movement, praying his new little brother succeeds because the betting pool has already climbed past 1 million and keeps rising. Rival adventurers laugh that Zhao will lose everything and confidently add another 50,000 against Anbai's survival, until the receptionist notices the public leaderboard suddenly updating behind her without warning. Remnants of the Bug Emperor now lists Anbai, still level 5, in first place after completing Purgatory difficulty with an unprecedented SSS rank, leaving the entire hall stunned that an unknown freshman just cleared the dungeon's hardest setting completely alone. Zhao grabs the bettor called Old Jiang, howls that Brother Bai hit the jackpot, and demands immediate payment on every promised stake while the loser goes limp. Far from the exploding celebration, a lone cloaked figure stands atop a high mound as a pale blue streak cuts across the open sky overhead. The system showers Anbai with experience, a purple dungeon chest, and a bonus gold chest for his first Purgatory clear, pushing him to level 7 with 2 new affix draws, 20 all stat points, and 6 additional spirit. 2 Chrysostom chests materialize before him, and he opens them while wondering whether the legendary first clear rewards match the rumors. Receiving 6 Blood Rage pills, 3 nutrition potions, an Insect General Talon, Insect Emperor Fluid, 2 Insect King material, and a Purgatory Walker badge. The gold badge identifies Anbai as only the 81st Purgatory Walker since the Cataclysmic era, a reward reserved for rookies with exceptional courage and strength, and grants 10 growth type points to every stat, making it an immediate equip and leaving him free to focus on the 2 golden pulls still waiting. He rolls both at once and obtains the legendary modifiers Flame and Teleport, though their exact applications remain unexplored. Meanwhile, Dean Jifeng questions Lu Ruyan's party about the unnaturally empty back mountain, asking whether they secretly teamed up or awakened a giant area skill. But all 3 insist their own clearing speed was ordinary, and every mutated beast had vanished before they arrived. Teacher Wang then comes sprinting in with news urgent enough to interrupt the interrogation, so Jifeng dismisses the students back to grinding before hearing the report. Wang reveals that another school's monster cleared remnants of the Bug Emperor at only level 5, shocking Ji because he himself needed level 9 merely to beat its nightmare setting, and the witnesses confirm this unknown rookie finished Purgatory difficulty in about 1 hour. Anbai is already spending the same day inside another dungeon, cutting down a level 6 elite Black Iron Knight among towering armored statues, then dropping a level 5 archer as he explains that dungeon cards permit 3 free runs daily, though this location contains far fewer elites than the insect dungeon. A formation of Black Iron soldiers spots the solitary mage through a stone archway and closes in, with one polearm fighter launching forward in a direct thrust, only for Anbai to fold beneath the strike and twist away before the weapon can pin him. Another blue attack rips through his cloak while he continues the evasive motion, but Anbai plants one hand, snaps a fireball into the attacker, and kills a level 6 elite Black Iron archer without breaking rhythm. He downs a recovery potion as red healing energy closes the damage and decides his first purchase, after leaving must be a defensive skill book. Then follows a flight of shrieking purple bats toward an enormous sealed doorway deeper inside the fortress. Wind and wings churn around Anbai as something beyond the entrance begins responding to his presence, and the chamber opens around a colossal double-headed metal hammer standing upright, its handle towering above the lone mage. Heavy footsteps cross the platform before an armored giant reaches down from the darkness, while the doorway slams shut behind Anbai, removing the easy retreat. One look at the scale of the silhouette tells him he has wandered into a boss unit, and a plated hand closes around the giant hammer's handle. The level 7 Black Iron Giant King rises from its slumber in scarred plate with red eyes blazing, promises the intruder the same fate as every previous challenger, and hides the rest of its status behind an appraisal requirement. Roaring for Anbai to die, it immediately swings with enough force to shred the stone floor and fill the chamber with a crushing shockwave, leaving Anbai painfully aware that the room is cramped, the boss is huge, and its attack range allows almost nowhere to dodge. Realizing a long exchange favors the giant, he circles through the falling debris and prepares multiple glowing fireballs for a one-burst kill, detonating them against the king's armor in a concentrated wall of orange fire. The boss emerges wounded but furious, swearing at the insect who damaged it as more glowing shots crowd the air around its body. Yet Anbai sees the core problem. The target is so large and heavily armored that individual fireballs cannot break its defense. Since the giant's power comes with sluggish movement, he switches to kiting, maintaining distance around each purple-edged swing while pouring repeated explosions into it, until the next attack pattern makes his expression collapse into one very human realization that the plan has gone wrong. The hammer crashes through masonry with enough force to send whole slabs spinning across the chamber, colliding with Envai's barrage in another violent explosion. Before the huge weapon slams down amid smoke and rubble, its red inset gem still gleaming and suggesting neither the hammer nor its owner is finished yet. Enbai slips clear by inches and realizes the giant deliberately struck one of his lingering fireballs, turning its delayed explosion against him. But the circling bats give him the missing piece of a counterattack while the armored king prepares to charge again. He orders the system to attach Flame to his basic class passive and teleport to Fireball, converting two saved golden modifiers into immediate combat tools, then launches blazing projectiles into the airborne pack instead of wasting them directly against the giant's armor. Each explosion herds or kills more bats, allowing Enbai to position burning bodies throughout the chamber like ammunition around his true target. And when the giant king storms forward beneath the swarm, Enbai waits until every moving part enters the planned formation. At his command, the suspended fireballs erupt together in a sun-bright blast, raining dead bats into the boss's path, where the battered giant remains upright just long enough for Enbai to activate corpse explosion through the falling carcasses. The resulting concentrated chain blast tears across the king's enormous frame, and Enbai's precise skill execution raises basic fireball proficiency, adding 10 base damage, proof that disciplined control can improve a skill even while his modifiers amplify it far beyond ordinary limits. Smoke peels away from the shattered floor as the black iron giant king crashes down under the layered detonation. Yet the boss forces itself up with an anguished roar, armor cracked and body distorted by the punishment. Declaring that it will kill the human for the glory of the giants, it spins into one last sweeping hammer assault. While Enbai calmly points his wand down, says, "Next," and fires at the ground beneath himself. Teleport lets him bypass the hammer's entire attack range, using the fireball's destination to escape as another explosion bursts against the boss, and the giant king is hurled into the wall, finally unable to rise from the decisive impact. The system confirms the level 7 boss's death, and Bai's first purgatory clear of the Black Iron King's tomb, a purple chest, and the hidden purple Black Iron Great Shield. Massive experience pushes him to level 8 with 8% progress, triggers another 10 all-stat points plus 10 flame affinity and 6 spirit, and grants a modifier draw. Opening the purple chest yields 5 nutrition potions, 500 black iron stones, and a mount contract, an especially valuable scroll that immediately interests him more than the ordinary supplies. And Bai imagines riding a blue flying dragon, pleased that a mount could slash travel time and also assist him in battle. While the rewards are still fresh, and Bai tells the system to use the modifier draw earned at level 8. And when Tenfold appears again, Duplicate Protection immediately grants a bonus draw that produces Crimson Lotus, a golden modifier that changes fire into Crimson Lotus Flame, multiplies base power tenfold, and inflicts an unavoidable 30-second burn dealing 1% of the initial damage each second. He stacks the new Tenfold onto basic class and applies Crimson Lotus to Fireball, raising the passive to 2 tenfold affixes and the attack to level 3 while fundamentally upgrading its flames. Leaving through the dungeon's blue exit beam, Enbai plans to sell unwanted materials the next day, buy skill books, and secure a spatial ring for his growing inventory, because clearing every available level 5 dungeon in a single exhausting night has left him buried under a comically oversized pack. The next dungeon tier will not unlock until level 10, but another unfinished matter suddenly returns to him, and he hurries back toward the association, wondering whether Zhao Ruchen took the betting money and disappeared. Zhao is still there and greets Brother An with loud relief the moment Anbai emerges, explaining that anyone who cleared 5 dungeons overnight and shattered every record deserves the respectful title regardless of age. He produces a gold-colored card, finally settling the gamble that began before Envai's first purgatory run, and reveals that repeated side pools turned Envai's share into 1.98 million. A sum large enough to leave the young mage speechless. Zhao quietly warns him about the hooded man nearby, since roughly half the winnings came directly from that stranger's pocket, identifying him as Jiang Lei, a level 20 assassin from the Shadow Assassin Guild who may seek revenge for the loss. Anbai acknowledges the danger but hands out the remaining dungeon materials and equipment, rewarding him for working through the night and handling the sales, and the veteran adventurer catches the overflowing bundle with astonishment, recognizing that its contents are worth another fortune. Later, city lights surround the modest apartment building where Enbai finally returns home, bringing a carefully chosen set that includes a new staff and robe, a ruby ring, an amulet, a spatial ring, a basic appraisal skill, and a mage-exclusive skill book. He sold the rest of his loot and combined the proceeds with his winnings, spending nearly 3 million on these upgrades. But he considers the expense justified because money matters only when converted into real personal power. Studying the Mage book unlocks basic telekinetic shield, which binds to one shield item and creates a barrier whose defense and durability each scale with 5% of his spirit. Anbai welcomes the defensive spell as the exact answer to his greatest weakness and selects the purple shield dropped by the Giant King as its anchor, joking that the enormous slab resembles the boss's coffin lid before commanding telekinetic shield to bind. Golden energy shapes itself into a towering barrier behind him, giving Anbai another layer of protection for the wilderness expedition he plans to begin tomorrow. Morning sunlight pours down the immense fortified passage leading from Shangjiang City toward the dangerous world beyond its walls, where crossed polearms bar the way until the gate guards finish examining the departing traveler. Seeing only a level 8 basic mage, one armored guard asks whether Anbai truly intends to leave the city. But the young man approaches in his newly purchased dark robe and calmly confirms his decision. He pays the 10,000 yuan exit fee and registers it, while the guard explains that his class system can transmit an SOS for nearby city forces if danger overwhelms him. The guards also warn him to return before sunset, because darkness drives monsters into a berserk state and sharply increases their attributes. A short-range teleportation array carries Anbai 100 miles out into an active war zone of ruined buildings and giant skeletal remains, where even ordinary vegetation has mutated since the cataclysm, and one careless step can erase a novice without leaving a corpse. Navigation is equally treacherous because electronics fail outside the city, making Anbai grateful for the class system and curious about the godlike being that created it. Nearby, hungry goblins complain that their food stores are nearly empty and fear their king will eat them unless they bring back meat. So the presence of human rookies sounds like salvation. Hidden above them, Anbai uses basic appraisal to identify goblin archers and warriors around levels 9 and 10, as the monsters boast that any arriving humans will be easy prey. The skill reveals only limited data at its current rank, but that is enough for Anbai to judge the pack without exposing himself. Deciding there is no time to waste, he raises his new staff and begins grinding toward level 10, sending a single enhanced fireball into the group and engulfing the ambush site in a massive orange detonation. One surviving goblin stares through the smoke in disbelief, finally understanding that the supposed rookie is a human mage. And terror replaces hunger as Anbai stands over the devastated squad with his blue-orbed staff still glowing. Instead of finishing the last creature, he orders it to run, deliberately frightening the goblin into leading him straight back to its camp. The terrified survivor reaches a crude watchtower and stammers that a human mage is coming, prompting the camp to mobilize and demand the intruder's death. While Anbai walks openly along the forest path, his staff's blue core shining through the dark magical haze gathering around him. A muscular goblin brute rushes out first and raises a massive studded club, convinced that raw force will crush the slight human in one blow, only for Anbai's fireball to meet the charge with an explosion that pulverizes the ground and throws debris across the settlement. Scores of red-eyed goblins surge from behind the palisades with shields, blades, and clubs, surrounding the lone mage from every direction, and their front ranks unleash arrows and heavy weapons together, expecting sheer numbers to overwhelm him. Anbai activates telekinetic shield, and the giant golden barrier absorbs every impact without losing even a single point. Yet another hulking warrior leaps overhead with its club raised, trying to break through the defense by striking from above. The weapon smashes directly into the glowing shield and rebounds from a surface harder than the attacker imagined, leaving the brute roaring in disbelief that a novice human can stand untouched beneath such force. With an almost apologetic wave, Anbai locks the attackers in place long enough to prepare the punishment, then detonates another blazing projectile in the packed formation, turning the camp's numerical advantage into a deadly concentration of targets. A larger goblin, swollen with green energy, forces itself through the smoke as surviving archers watch it become the next center of destruction. Because corpse explosion leaps from the first bodies into a cascading field of green blast that consumes victim after victim. From the trees, the hooded assassin Zhang Lele secretly observes the chain reaction with drawn daggers, confirming that he followed Anbai into the wilderness, while nearby adventurers wonder what Master Mage is carpet-bombing the area and compare the rapid explosions to the Tier 3 spell Flame Burst. Unaware or unconcerned about the audience, Anbai advances deeper among the broken stones and crude fortifications of the goblin settlement, where an armed survivor grips its spear and waits behind cover for a chance to attack his exposed side. Several goblins convince themselves that killing this human will earn the king's favor and spring their ambush from the surrounding ruins, charging together with spears and blades as Anbai remains centered in their tightening circle, staff ready and composure unbroken. Anbai admits the goblins understand basic teamwork, then dismisses their coordinated assault as meaningless before absolute power. An instacast fills the battlefield with fireballs before the attackers can complete their converging strikes. Explosions fling goblins and weapons through the air while the bound golden shield continues guarding Anbai's back, letting him sweep his staff through the remaining ranks and drive another blazing sphere across the camp. The system reports 34 goblins killed and raises him to level 8 with 16% experience, as Anbai remarks on the good fortune of clearing an entire camp so quickly. Among the wreckage, he discovers coins, weapons, scrolls, and a bright purple crystal scattered across the stone, recognizing the crystal as a luxury material worth 1,000 yuan per gram and normally affordable only to Shangjiang's elite. He draws the whole treasure pile into his spatial ring, reflecting that combat professions risk death but earn money far faster than peaceful lifestyle classes. Then remembers the goblins mentioned a king and concludes that an even larger camp must lie nearby. His search produces another huge goblin opponent, but the monster is hurled backward before it can stop the advancing mage. While Zhang Lei's companions identify Anbai as the rookie who cost Zhang his team leader position and forced him to repay more than 1 million to the guild within 3 days. One observer suggests secretly eliminating the level 9 youth, but Zhang refuses because he believes Anbai belongs to the influential Bai family. Continued hunting finally carries Anbai to level 10. His class passives pour additional points into every stat, flame affinity, and spirit, though the late hour makes finding shelter urgent. His status now shows level 10 magic apprentice, 138 physique, 137 speed, 171 spirit, 44 fire affinity, his expanded skill set, and 2 available affix draws. Zhang Lei's group decides their current position is too close to city patrols for an attack and follows Anbai farther out, privately questioning whether any powerful Bai family even exists in Zhang City. Inside a sheltered cave, Anbai starts a small fire, opens the system interface, and orders both saved traits drawn, sending 2 sealed cards spinning through a storm of gold light as their results resolve. The draw display flashes familiar explosion imagery beside a red skull-marked, death-averting substitute, forcing duplicate protection to complete the reward sequence, and the system ultimately confirms the golden legendary unyielding trait together with the red mythical death-averting substitute trait. And Bai freezes at the red result, stunned that a mythical grade has appeared above every quality he previously knew, and wonders why no one ever mentioned that an entire tier exists beyond Gold Legendary. Because Death Averting Substitute is a trait rather than a normal castable skill, he considers how to extract its maximum value, then decides to anchor it to a passive, so its life-saving effect will always be ready. The trait triggers against fatal damage, leaves a substitute behind, teleports his restored body anywhere within 1 kilometer, and grants 1 minute of complete immunity. He currently has 1 charge, but consumed substitutes replenish, and the limit rises whenever he levels, making future Anbai almost impossible to kill. A volley of purple knives suddenly slices into the cave, but his perception catches the ambush and telekinetic shield turns the blades aside. Zhang Lei steps from the darkness, mockingly asks why young Master An hunts without servants and receives a cold look of recognition, before demanding all the money Anbai won from him yesterday in exchange for sparing the rookie's life. Zhang boasts that his group already checked the cave and can finish the murder within 5 minutes, even if city guards respond immediately, while 2 armed companions crowd behind him and urge their leader to stop talking and seize the target. Anbai counts only 3 enemies and thanks them for easing his concern, because 5 minutes is more time than he needs, prompting the first furious attacker to activate Swift Move and rush what he assumes is a helpless solo mage. A blazing orb appears directly in the charging man's path, instantly overturning his expectation of an easy close-range kill, and a rapid barrage of fireballs tears through the cave with repeated orange impacts. One victim survives only because a rare red-pattern life-saving talisman shatters inside the dark energy wrapping his body, leaving him gasping that a mere level 10 novice forced the activation of an item worth a fortune. Anbai follows with a controlling gesture, denying the shaken attackers time to recover or reorganize, and tells the fallen man that the plan itself was sound. The only mistake was believing their combined strength exceeded his. Zhang finally recognizes that the mysterious mage behind the earlier Tier 3-like flame burst was Anbai himself. But Anbai calmly denies knowing any Tier 3 spell, concealing the affixed basic fireball that produced the impossible display. The unavoidable Crimson Lotus burn keeps consuming the surviving attacker, and his screams echo through the cave as flames race over his cloak, until smoke, scattered debris, and a fading weapon are all that remain on the shattered ground. Anbai notes that corpse explosion is excellent for erasing evidence as well as enemies, then turns away from the apparently finished fight, unaware that a pool of purple shadow is creeping toward his feet from behind. A hidden blade erupts from the darkness and drives through Anbai before he can raise the shield, leaving blood across his robe as Zhang Lei materializes beside the collapsing mage. Zhang laughs that the enemy Anbai burned was merely his shadow clone and boasts that a level 20 assassin naturally carries multiple survival tricks, then kneels over the body, calls the rookie talented but naive, and reaches for the treasures he expects to steal. The corpse abruptly changes into a wooden substitute surrounded by gold light, revealing that Anbai's mythical trait activated at the fatal strike, and the restored Anbai reappears deeper in the cave with fireballs floating beside him, sincerely praising Zhang as worthy of level 20. He sends the flames surging around the shocked assassin before Zhang can disappear into another shadow, admitting that death-averting substitute saved his life and repeatedly detonating the area to ensure no additional clones remain. Successive blasts rip through the cave mouth, hurling stone and dust into the surrounding forest, until Zhang's ruined spatial ring, weapons, coins, gems, and personal items lie scattered in the crater, convinces Hai that the assassin is truly dead. He gathers the surviving loot with a sober reminder that fellow class holders, not monsters, often pose the hardest dangers because their strange methods are impossible to predict, and accepts that telekinetic shield cannot block everything. His real safeguard is the substitute trait, whose future charges depend on leveling quickly. A pulsing purple fissure suddenly appears in the broken cave floor, radiating energy unfamiliar enough to halt his departure. So Anbai reaches over the star-filled opening and casts basic appraisal on the anomaly, The result identifies the one-time Demon King's burial ground, a medium multiplayer secret realm restricted to level 20 or below and requiring 4 people to open, leaving Unbai astonished that his excessive bombardment accidentally blasted open the entrance to a hidden realm beneath the temporary shelter he chose for safety. He jumps down beside the purple fissure and tests its unstable energy, confirming that the opening is real rather than a trick left by Zhonglei. But the four-person condition stops him. Classmates seem too unreliable and might demand resources without contributing. And Bai instead uses system mail to summon Zhao Ruqin, announcing a new sub-level 20 secret realm, with one person waiting for 3. And before long, Zhao's familiar voice calls for Brother N outside the damaged cave. Relieved that his recruits have finally arrived, and Bai meets them at the entrance with no need to explain away the battlefield. Zhao says trouble delayed them and introduces his younger sister, Zhao Jiqing, and her classmate Si Ying, two recent class changers brought along to gain experience. Zhao Ziqing is a level 5 Tier 3 guardian from Shuilan High School, while Si Ying is a level 4 Tier 3 warrior from the same school. And Bai keeps his own introduction simple, asking both newcomers to call him by name, then leads the complete four-person party into the cave and points out the purple entrance in the floor. He promises the others 10% of the rewards each and says they need only follow because he intends to handle every fight himself, making the girls privately wonder how Zhao's request to carry Anbai turned into Anbai offering to carry all of them. Zhao declines even his 10% share, explaining that he is capped at level 20 and cannot benefit from the experience anyway, as purple energy envelops the group. With 4 qualified players assembled, the entrance activates and pulls them through in a violent pillar of violet light, depositing the party beneath an enormous moon in a barren realm of stone plains and jagged spires. Sissy Ying nervously raises her ornate shield, and Anbai guesses she chose a high defense profession largely because she fears being hurt. A gigantic blue skeletal hand punches out of the earth ahead, scattering rock around its grasping fingers, followed by ranks of glowing blue undead soldiers and a red-eyed swordsman in tattered armor. Appraisal identifies the lead skeleton swordsman as a level 15 purple elite with 28,000 health, 350 attack, 150 defense, level 10 swordsmanship mastery, and additional skills. The newcomers question whether a level 10 mage can truly solo such an enemy and prepare to intervene despite Anbai's order. But Anbai only grins at the challenge, delighted that the secret realm's very first monster proves its difficulty, and likely rewards are substantial. Since revealing his affix system to the 3 witnesses would invite dangerous questions, Anbai decides to suppress its most obvious effects, and loudly announces an ordinary fireball while forming a single orange flame where everyone can see it. Projectile strikes the elite skeleton swordsman with enough power to blow apart its ribs and tear through its blue bones, sending the skull spinning across the barren ground before the monster can demonstrate any of its advanced swordsmanship. Zhao and both girls stare at the remains, unable to reconcile that one-hit kill with either a basic fireball or Anbai's level 10, while Anbai reassures himself that leaving the corpse intact should keep corpse explosion and his hidden affixes from being identified. More skeletal troops surround the group, and he attacks individually, privately annoyed that almost every enemy here qualifies as an elite. Even restrained fireballs erupt with overwhelming force, creating a wall of flame that makes Si Ying ask why any basic mage's damage could be so high. Zhao corrects her assumption that Anbai deliberately capped his level, explaining that Brother An awakened only yesterday just like the 2 girls, which leaves Sing despairing that the gap between 2 humans can somehow exceed the gap between a person and a dog. Zhao Jiqing indignantly asks whether that makes them worse than dogs, earning a sharp command from her embarrassed classmate to be quiet. Zhao orders both girls to keep pace because Anbai is clearing so quickly that they will soon reach the boss, and nobody should drag him down. Another sequence of compact explosions breaks the next armored skeletons apart before their axes or swords can reach the party, and the accumulated experience raises Anbai to level 11, granting 30 points to every attribute, 10 flame affinity, 6 spirit, and a refreshed modifier draw. He orders the others to collect all drop materials before the group continues deeper, so Zhao cheerfully takes the pile of bones and bright crystals and tells Brother An to rest while they handle the grunt work. And Bai immediately spends his new draw and receives the golden legendary high probability affix, reasons that it concerns the chance of special effects triggering against monsters, and assigns it to Fireball because that remains his only offensive skill. The affix confirms that attacks made with the enhanced skill increase the activation chance of low probability effects tied to it, making Anbai grin when he realizes his guess was correct and his already overloaded Fireball has gained another path to escalation. Zhao reports that every recovered material is safely stored in his spatial ring and asks whether Brother An wants to divide the haul immediately. But Anbaipi postpones accounting until after they clear the secret realm and starts forward again. The barren path gives way to a shadowed graveyard filled with crooked headstones and an enormous stone coffin beneath the trees, its scale making the ordinary graves around it seem like markers for servants, where all four travelers halt, weapons drawn as cold blue motes drift around them. And Bai uneasily recognizes another coffin after facing one in his previous dungeon and wonders whether the repeated omen can possibly be good, while the carved lid begins to shift without anyone touching it, scraping across the tomb under an unnatural pressure from within. A violent burst of cyan power blows the coffin apart, launching slabs and fragments throughout the cemetery, and Zhao Ziqing plants her ornate shield to protect the party from the first wave of debris. Spectral blue-green fire then floods outward and gathers into the outline of a colossal undead ruler, which appraisal names the level 15 purple boss Cursed Demon King, possessing 100,000 health but 0 attack and defense, with life, curse chain, and summon as its listed skills, a profile suggesting mechanics matter more than direct force. Its enormous smoky form rises above the headstones until the four challengers look like insects beneath its reaching hands. Zhao moves forward to meet the threat while trying to understand an enemy whose numbers make no conventional sense. The Demon King's single red eye ignites, and the graveyard trembles as it fully awakens, forcing Anbai to warn his companions away while black-blue mist rolls across the battlefield and separates their positions. Unable to target cleanly through the supernatural fog, he decides to blast the obscuring cloud open before attacking the boss itself, and launches a concentrated orange fireball into the swirling cyan darkness. The result makes Anbai stare because the fog does not simply disperse as ordinary smoke should, instead condensing into a barrage of enormous skull-shaped curse projectiles that descend upon the scattered party from every direction. Anbai instantly expands telekinetic shield around himself, bracing the golden barrier against the spectral mass. But a black life curse chain spears through the clash of orange and cyan energy, revealing an attack designed to bypass ordinary defenses and punish anyone who treats this boss like a simple damage target. The chain marks Anbai, Zhao Ziqing, and Si Ying with cold rings of curse energy, linking every party member at once. And Zhao urgently orders everyone to inspect the new status before making another attack. The warning says they are bound by the Curse King's life chain and will suffer the damage themselves whenever an attack strikes one of its clones, leaving the frightened girls clinging together as they realize one careless hit could kill the attacker instead of the boss. Zhao recognizes the forbidden curse from an earlier battle against a lich, remembering how badly his inexperienced party suffered while learning its rules, and explains that one unfortunate teammate became the life chain's target during that encounter. Everyone assumed a priest could stabilize the victim with continuous healing and remove any immediate danger, but when the party fought through the curse and destroyed the lich that created it, their companion's life still faded away with the source, dying after victory when no rescue remained possible. Zhao Ziqing breaks down at the implication that the current chain may condemn them even if Anbai wins. Anbai steadies the group that damage occurs only when they hit a clone. 9 of the 10 demon kings must be false, so killing the single real body should end the threat safely. Though Zhao immediately asks how they can identify the real one without attacking and triggering the punishment. Anbai privately trusts death-averting substitute to protect himself, but refuses to gamble with the 3 people he invited and resolves to get them out alive. The 10 giant skull-face figures drift around the cemetery, identical through their layers of cyan flame and offering no visual clue about which presence controls the others. And a central apparition begins chanting another spell in a language none of the party understands. Si Ying sees the gathering energy and warns everyone that the boss is casting again. Just as the graveyard ground shakes beneath their feet and ancient bones claw upward, armored skeleton soldiers pull themselves from the soil in waves, immediately raising swords and shields, until a tightening undead army surrounds all 4 adventurers, cuts off every clear route between the false kings, and forces the party back into a compact defensive formation. Faced with the curse, the clones, and the summoned horde, Si Ying asks Zhao whether they should abandon the secret realm immediately. Zhao falls silent, weighing retreat while the anxious girls wait behind him and the encircling skeletons continue closing in. But Anbai calmly asks them to hold their ground, promising that no skeleton warrior can threaten anyone who remains beside him. He channels restrained fire through his staff, deliberately suppressing corpse explosion and narrowing every blast to prevent an uncontrolled chain reaction, then fires with surgical accuracy, striking only the approaching skeletons while keeping each airborne Demon King body safely outside the explosion radius. The first compact fireball tears straight through an elite skeleton warrior, shattering its armor and burning its bones apart in one blow. A notification confirms the elite kill and raises Anbai's level 11 experience to 3%, surprising him because the boss's summons award normal experience. More undead leap from the darkness yet, and Bai's instant cast fireballs meet every charge before the attackers can reach his companions, and the discovery turns danger into opportunity as he welcomes every new wave, eager to harvest as much experience as the summoner can provide. Golden spheres streak across the graveyard in rapid succession, pulverizing skeletons from multiple directions before their blades can descend. Anbai grows carried away by the endless targets and releases one fireball with far more power than intended, instantly realizing his mistake. The swollen projectile races dangerously close to a hovering Demon King body while the enormous apparition sweeps over the tiny party below. But it misses the suspected clone by a narrow margin, sparing Anbai from the life chain's retaliatory damage. Zhao begs him to be careful because all their lives depend on his aim, and Anbai sheepishly she assures everyone that the near disaster was accidental. Regaining total control, the mage surrounds himself with compact fireballs and resumes firing at measured angles through every gap in the formation, each shot smashing another armored skeleton apart without touching any of the 10 cursed bodies overhead. The barrage becomes an uninterrupted storm of golden bolts, scattering weapons and bones across the cracked ground until the immediate horde is erased. 2 hours later, the three exceeded companions sit around a cloth and tea set, while seeing marvels at how completely Anbai exploited the encounter. She watches him continue bombarding fresh summons alone, describing the troublesome boss as nothing more than a self-operating experience farming machine. Zhao agrees that most adventurers would have fled long ago, whereas Anbai alone possesses the power and precision to slaughter skeleton warriors continuously. Resting beside them, Zhao Jiqing opens her pale eyes as another distant volley across the graveyard, silently absorbing the scale of his strength. The fighting suddenly stops, and Zhao Jiqing points out that no more skeletons are climbing from the scattered graves. Only broken blue bones and empty burial pits remain across the misty cemetery, confirming that the seemingly endless stream has finally dried up. Ying looks skyward and discovers that 9 apparitions have vanished as well, leaving a single cursed demon king exposed above Anbai. Anbai boldly demands more summons and taunts the lone boss, asking whether 2 hours of relentless farming have finally frightened it. Zhao realizes every cast consumed the Demon King's spirit power. After sustaining the army for so long, the boss has simply exhausted its mana. Anbai understands that the depleted creature can no longer maintain either its summoning magic or the 9 protective clones. While the girls confirm through their status screens that the life chain has automatically broken, removing the last danger of reflected damage. With his companions safe, Anbai drives power into his staff and declares that he will deliver the final blow personally. The weakened cursed Demon King hangs helplessly before him, its cyan fire guttering around its exposed skull and skeletal torso, before one overwhelming golden fireball engulfs the purple boss and blasts a deep crater through the graveyard floor. The realm announces a successful clear, and Anbai reaches level 12, gaining 90 points to every basic stat, 61 spirit, and another trait draw. Victory also awards a purple secret realm world chest, and for achieving a perfect clear, a golden secret realm crystal core. Anbai studies the radiant cube floating above his palm and asks what such an unfamiliar core is meant to do. Zhao explains that it is dungeon crafting material worth 3 to 4 million if sold through the city's Adventurers Association, though crystal cores are normally contracted out for continuing commissions based on how many adventurers later enter the constructed dungeon, not sold outright. Anbai opens the purple chest and receives the Demon King's remains, a tier 3 summoning skill book, a purple sorcery bone staff, and a purple black witch necklace. Purple fractures spread across the sky as the cleared miniature world begins collapsing, prompting Zhao to praise the hall and order an immediate departure. Columns of violet light seize all 4 survivors and pull them away together before the disintegrating secret realm can trap anyone inside. Safely outside, Zhao laughs that their effortless clear feels like a dream, but Ying objects that Anbai unmistakably completed the entire realm alone. She then turns toward the quiet mage and calls to him in an unusually sweet, drawn-out voice, clearly seeking his attention. Blushing beneath her swept blonde hair, Ying asks Anbai to give her priority if he intends to sell the Tier 3 summoning skill book. Anbai calculates its 8 million market price and their promised 10% shares, but abandons the complicated accounting and offers it to her for 6 million. Ying immediately asks Shou for money, yet her horrified brother protests that 2 years of saving have earned him only 2 million. He clutches his piggy bank and insists the fund was meant to help him find a wife, while Ying mocks his drinking and laziness. Zhao Jiaqing quietly offers to lend whatever remains, and Ying eagerly asks whether her armored friend can truly supply missing 4 million. The Treasury records payments of 4 million and 2 million, completing the agreed 6 million purchase without further negotiation. Overjoyed, Ying hugs Zhao Jiqing, kisses her cheek, and declares her love while clutching the newly purchased red skill book. Anbai asks Zhao to handle selling the remaining materials, and the seasoned adventurer readily promises to take care of everything. Alone again, Anbai equips the purple sorcery bone staff, gaining 20 spirit and illusory sorcery, which can strip one target's physical properties and suspend it for a minute. He also wears the cracked purple black witch necklace, adding 80 spirit and 50 points of curse resistance despite its low durability. His new golden multiple affix fits telekinetic shield perfectly, because each proficiency level adds another shield he can control simultaneously. As Anbai tests his enhanced defenses near a forest cave, several hidden attackers suddenly loose arrows toward him from above. Multiple golden barriers appear at once and intercept every shaft, making him suspect that Shadow Assassin members have found his shelter again. The ambushers reveal themselves as a squad of red-eyed goblin archers, however, and Anbai is almost impressed by their coordinated concealment. Rather than erase them immediately, he raises the bone staff and decides to use the attackers to test his newly upgraded equipment. Fire flows through the epic staff with exceptional smoothness, confirming that its superior material gathers and channels spirit power efficiently. Repeated defense raises telekinetic shield to level 2, enabling a shield-type item binding, and defense equal to its equipment value plus 10% of spirit. And Bai welcomes the breakthrough and keeps the goblins alive, recognizing them as perfect moving targets for further proficiency practice. Believing the humans suppressed, the goblin leader orders every archer to shoot rapidly, and a dense second of volley descends from the tree. And Bai sits behind one luminous barrier and yawns. With 120 base defense plus 1048 from spirit, their arrows cannot possibly break his 1 to 68 point shield. 1 hour later, the exhausted goblins can barely stand or lift their bows, yet Nbai has calmly endured every arrow without retaliating. The prolonged assault finally raises telekinetic shield to level 3, allowing 3 shield bindings and defense equal to equipment defense plus 15% of spirit. Satisfied that his patient training succeeded, Unbai rises and retrieves the bone staff while the spent archers struggle around him. He thanks the goblins for their usefulness, forms a blazing fireball in his free hand, and announces that their lesson is over. The terrified creatures turn and run, but the projectile races after them with enough speed and power to overtake the entire squad. Successive explosions tear across the forest, killing 31 goblins and bringing Nbai's level 12 experience to 79%. Farther toward the forest center, powerful level 20 adventurers hack apart monsters with axes and other heavy weapons to harvest valuable materials, while organized warriors, mages, and defenders surround charging beasts, showing how much more crowded and professional the hunting grounds have become. Watching from behind a tree, Nbai recognizes these class holders as level-capped laborers earning their living and seeks a quieter route to advance alone. By eliminating scattered goblins along the forest core's outer edge, he gathers the remaining experience and reaches level 13. His new golden draw produces true, an affix that converts every type of damage dealt by the modified skill into true damage. And Bai remembers worrying that relying on Fireball alone would leave him helpless against enemies possessing complete fire immunity. But True removes that weakness entirely, letting his flames ignore attributes and defenses, so he confidently assigns the affix to basic Fireball. Before he can continue hunting, a sudden scream cuts through the trees and draws his attention toward a nearby clearing. There he finds multiple hooded figures gathered around a restrained victim inside a red ritual pattern, their cloaks bearing an ominous dark emblem. One masked leader watches coldly from beneath his hood, black markings curling across half his face as the victim's cries continue. Another attacker grips the captive by the throat and forces something toward his mouth, making Nbai wonder what purpose could justify such brutality. He initially considers a private guild vendetta, yet the punishment appears far too vicious even for a conflict among criminal adventurers. The marked leader suddenly senses the hidden observer, turns toward Nbai's tree, and commands whoever is watching to reveal himself. A close look at a skeletal hand gripping a dagger identifies at least one of the people caught in the clearing as a Shadow Assassin Guild member. Nbai walks openly into the clearing and asks what Shadow Assassin Guild members are doing there, drawing blades from the surrounding hooded fighters. An underling reports to the marked leader that the stranger's background is unknown, despite the Shadow Assassin's responsibility for affairs inside the city. Refusing to risk their larger operation, the leader orders his numerous followers to capture Nbai before anything else can go wrong. Nbai realizes these mysterious killers silence everyone they encounter, not even sparing Shadow Assassin members, and wonders what organization commands such ruthlessness. One hooded swordsman activates Windwalk and launches forward in a cyan blur, intending to cut the apparent young mage down immediately. Since the attacker charges without answering, Nbai says they cannot blame him for retaliating and instant casts a golden fireball at point-blank range. The assassin twists through the wind to evade, only to find multiple blazing projectiles already surrounding his airborne body from every escape direction.